Welcome to the episode 2. Now let's continue our journey. I had been noticing for a long time that Rob experienced the world a little differently. Before putting him through a long series of evaluations and tests, I knew I needed the right guidance. Before any diagnosis, before any assessment, I felt that I needed to prepare myself first. I needed to understand my son. I needed to learn, educate myself, and understand how I could best support Rob before asking him to go through a process he could not even understand himself. That is why I stayed in close contact with two specialists I deeply trusted in Turkey. One was a highly respected pediatric physician, and the other was a professor of psychiatry. I wanted advice. I wanted to understand what I was seeing. Most importantly, I wanted to make sure I was taking the right steps. Over time, both believed autism was a strong possibility. They encouraged me to begin a comprehensive evaluation process. As Rob was approaching his second birthday, certain things started catching my attention. He never responded to his name. He could stare at a single spot for long periods of time, making sounds to himself. He was already over 18 months old and still had not spoken a single word. But in other areas, he was remarkable. He knew every flag in the world. He could spot a single letter written incorrectly in a sentence. He slept well. He ate well, and there was something else. When he was happy, he genuinely laughed. When he was sad, he cried. When something hurt, he showed it. His connection to the world was real. It was simply expressed in a different way. I later learned from specialists how important that was. They explained that when an autistic child shows natural emotional responses to joy, sadness, and pain, it is an important sign that their connection to the world is still open. Research also suggests that children who maintain this emotional responsiveness tend to make better progress in language and communication over time. His strengths gave us confidence. That is why we waited for a while before starting the diagnostic process. We wanted Rob to be ready for the evaluation process. Autism does not always look the way people imagine. Strengths and challenges can exist side by side, and sometimes those strengths make it easy to wait. But I want to say this clearly. Early diagnosis always matters. Getting the right support during the period when a child's brain is developing most rapidly can have a much greater impact than anything that comes later. And there is something else that is important to know. Not every child is born autistic. Some children develop typically, they start talking. They make eye contact, they connect with other people, and then, usually between 18 and 24 months of age, they begin to lose some of those skills. This is called regressive autism. Research suggests that this pattern occurs in approximately 20 to 30% of autistic children. So if your child seemed to be developing well at one point, do not let that reassure you into waiting. Regression is a sign too. After Stanford, we were referred to Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital. Then a very intense period began, with 2 to 3 medical appointments every week. The day we walked through those doors, a process of evaluations and testing began that would last for nearly 3 years. Rob's brain waves were measured. This test is called an EEG. Small electrodes were placed on his scalp to record the electrical activity of his brain. For a young child, it was not easy. He had to stay still. Rob completed it with remarkable patience. His hearing was tested in a soundproof room. He was expected to respond to sounds. Think about what that means for a child who had never even responded to his own name. Drops were placed in his eyes. His pupils were enlarged so the doctor could clearly examine the inside of his eyes. They were checking for vision problems and eye alignment issues. Every specialist approached the situation from a different angle, but they were all asking the same question. Could there be a physical cause? This step cannot be skipped. Before reaching any conclusion, the eyes, ears, and brain all need to be evaluated. I was fortunate. From the very beginning, I had two specialists I trusted by my side. One was a highly respected pediatric physician, and the other was a professor of psychiatry in Turkey. They followed Rob's development closely and stayed in regular contact with me throughout every step of the journey. They never stopped supporting us. Even today, I still seek their advice before making important decisions. By the time these evaluations began, they already knew Rob's history, his strengths, his challenges, and many of the things I had been observing at home. They had already helped prepare me for this process. When the psychiatry professor reviewed the first evaluation results, he said, "Rob makes eye contact. He smiles. That is very important." In more severe cases, that connection is often almost completely absent. This is one of the things specialists pay close attention to. Does the child make eye contact? Do they smile spontaneously? Can they share emotions? Do they respond naturally to joy, sadness, and pain? They also look at sleep patterns, eating habits, and daily living skills. The stronger these social and emotional abilities are, the more likely a child is to make progress in language and communication. He told me something else. The most important thing you can do for Rob is to truly be present. Observe him and document what you see. That advice stayed with me for years and still helps me today. Watch your child carefully, take notes, but do not stop there. Record videos, add dates, document what happens at home, because one day those recordings may help guide conversations with doctors, schools, and support systems. They may become some of your strongest evidence. Before this, I worked in the fashion industry, but I could never find enough time for my family and for Rob. So I made a major career change. I went back to school and moved into the world of finance and business. At that time, I was working for a large financial company. My company and my team were incredibly supportive. Lost developmental time can never be recovered. That is why the people you work with can be just as important as the job itself. Every moment I could spend with my son mattered. And throughout this entire journey, the teammates who are still among my closest friends today supported me every step of the way. In the next video, I will share where this journey led us. I would love to hear from you. Is there a specialist you trust? Do you document your child's development? Share your experiences in the comments. This is not just my story, this is our voice, because no family should have to walk this path alone.